Hello, fuck.
Keep that in, baby. Keep that in.
Yeah, keeping it in. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Dang it.
Sorry, fuck. Let them know how much of a shit show this is. All right, sorry. 3, 2, 1, go.
Great start. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Deprogram. My name is JT. I'm here with my two great comrades, Hakeem and Yugopnik, and we figured in this first episode we would just take a few minutes to go over who we are, what we do, and what we're hoping to achieve with this podcast. We hope you guys will stick around. I think it's going to be a good chat, and we've got some great episodes in store. So without further ado, I guess we will get started, and I will give you my quick introduction, and then I'll turn it over to the other two. So, my name is JT. I live in the DFW area of Texas, which, as we all know, is the best dadgum country in America. I tell you what. You may know me from the YouTube channel Second Thought, where I talk about socialist ideas at a 101 level. I've been doing YouTube for about 6 years now, and it's been my full-time job for the last 3 or 4. Second Thought started out as a more general interest science channel, and you've probably seen a couple of my more popular ones like What If NASA Had the US Military Budget and Is Time Travel Really Possible? Which have about 6 and 7 million views respectively, I think. As time went on, I started to get more interested in socialist ideology, and like many Americans, my radicalization process really started with Bernie Sanders and his 2016 campaign. I followed that campaign very closely, and as I learned more about Bernie and his ideas, I also learned that he really isn't a socialist, which made me think, okay, well, what's the difference between all these ideologies? How is social democracy different from democratic socialism? What's a Marxist-Leninist? What the heck is dialectical materialism? By the time I'd reached this phase of my progress towards the left, my channel was already pretty firmly established, but I was getting bored with my content. Like every week I dreaded starting a new video. I wasn't interested, and I think my audience could tell. Performance started to suffer, and by the beginning of 2020, my channel was pretty much circling the drain. When COVID-19 hit and I watched my country's horrific response, I made what most people would probably rightly consider a foolish decision. I said to myself, well, I hate what I'm doing now, and I'm not using my platform for anything worthwhile, so you know what? I'm going to completely change my channel and talk about socialist topics and just see what happens. If it works out, great. If it torpedoes my channel, I guess I'm going back to work at Best Buy. For my next episode, I worked harder than I think I ever have for one of my videos. My last science video was like 5 minutes long, and this one was over 20 minutes longer. It was also the only video I've ever uploaded late, because I was determined to put out a video I was really proud of, even if it was going to be my last one. To my surprise, the video was a hit. The message really seemed to resonate with people, and, obviously some subscribers left, some called me a dirty communist, all the usual knee-jerk responses, but overall, the reception was really positive. And really, the rest is history. I've been producing explicitly anti-capitalist content for almost 2 years now, and it feels like I'm finally using my platform to do some good. It may not be much, but each person I can deprogram is a win, and we need all the wins we can get. Anyway, that's the story of my YouTube channel and how I made the switch from my old stuff to my current content, but YouTube is just one part of my personality. I also love to play Magic the Gathering and Smash. I'm a DK main, which is obviously the best choice, and I enjoy spending time with my wife, watching Star Trek, and playing Frisbee with my two healers, Bandit and Bagel. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm super excited to start this podcast with two great comrades, and I will let them introduce themselves now.
Hi there, I'm Hakeem. By the way, just to say about that intro, it doesn't get any sweeter than to hear that beautiful silky voice for, 2 minutes in a row? I'm gonna use that for other purposes later.
Great.
No, joking aside, hi there. This isn't one of my garbage videos. This is me introducing myself. I'm Iraqi, and I'm a physician by profession, if that's important. I run I guess you could say, moderately sized channel that goes by, quite creatively, Hakeem. I've been going at it for a couple of years now, I think. I believe I started in 2017. My story, sadly, is nowhere nearly as interesting as JT's or even Yugopnik's. I started and have remained a Marxist channel, mostly focusing on theory, history, and the occasional shitpost, which I hope to make more of. I'd like to expand a little, in the future with a few more quote-unquote light and fun videos every once in a while, but regrettably, the time just isn't there for me, at least for right now. My radicalization parallels a lot of others from the imperial periphery. Simply, getting bombed by the US tends to make you somewhat of a commie sometimes. About myself, though, I enjoy cooking and have unironically considered making my channel a cooking channel. Maybe that'll still happen in the future, we'll see. I occasionally play piano and have a stupidly long reading list. I'll keep pushing that onto you guys, so, stay tuned or whatever. But, with that said, as do all of us, I don't think any Marxist exists without having a stupidly long reading list that they'll never get to in several lifetimes. Yeah, that, tea, and mangoes. That's my passions in life. I have no wife, although I am slowly looking into getting married, and have awkwardly been proposed to twice this past month by elderly ladies trying to set me up with their daughter, so hooray me. The issue with that is my eyes are truly set on Yugopnik, who is the love of my life and the light of my eyes. The poetry flows at his mere mention. For your eyes ransom, all the heart has found and yet will find I shall give. For love is the only thing I have that still lives and does not live. Never before was I of those in whose heart love lies, but all must fall in love with the sight of your eyes. That's from Mutanabbi.
That was truly beautiful.
That's from Mutanabbi. So he was a quite famous Arab poet and known for his homoerotic poetry, so accurate. I would quote Muhammad al-Fatih, but that would be insensitive to his Balkan heritage. As for JT, I simply respect him too much for any of my advances to get the better of me. Regardless, a great creator who I hope to match at least up to half of the quality he puts out. I look forward to learning, laughing, and just generally chilling with this lovely bunch. And now I'm going to hand it off to, as the aforementioned love of my life, Yugopnik.
Well, it's going to be very difficult to follow those two introductions, especially the last one, which made me a bit horny. The blood is not exactly all in the brain, but I think we can continue easily. So yeah, here we go. What's up, kids? I'm Yugopnik, part-time propagandist for the socialist cause over in YouTube, like these two doofuses, and part-time advertising sellout during my day job. I'm a straight-up Balkan-bred Slavic boy living over in Eastern Europe. I'm a pretty much walking cliche, keep the music loud and the drink cold, if you know what I mean. My formal education is in political science and business, together with some absolutely horrid corporate experience, sprinkled with knowing what it's like to live in a part of the world ravaged by the destruction of the local socialist project basically being destroyed, makes me a right-wing libertarian's worst nightmare. What do I mean by this? I ain't a socialist because I can't get a decent job. I ain't a socialist because I'm a purple-haired, spoiled Westerner who, quote-unquote, doesn't know how good he's got it. Yeah, look at me, mom. I don't fit any mold. On a serious note, I knew from the first day I worked my ass off and got paid in scraps, even in the United States, the supposed utopian capital of the world, that what I've been sold as the end-all, be-all system, the new natural order of capitalism was absolute dog shit. So I asked myself how I could help with its destruction. Jesus, I kind of sound like a terrorist. And well, I am not the smartest tool in the shed, nor the richest, ain't got a particularly potent voice or organizational skills. So I was like, okay, I guess YouTube videos it is. I've been at it for a few years now, and honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made. It's given me purpose and direction, but more importantly, it allowed me to meet brilliant people like Hakeem and JT, one of which seems to be in love with me, as you just heard. I'm in a happy long-term relationship, but I can't help but flirt back to my one and only Iraqi Habibi. And who knows, maybe JT will get in on the action as well. Boys club. I'm really looking forward to working on this with these two lovely assholes. I don't think I've heard of a more international political show currently on the internet, nor one with a more eclectic set of socialist characters. So I guess let's get this shit rolling, boys.
All right. That was beautiful.
Beautiful introduction. And just for the listeners' sake, this will, I think, be the only ever part that will be so rigidly scripted. All our future episodes will be more free flow with set topics that we kind of discuss.
Yeah, that was terrible. I was reading my introduction. I'm like, oh man, I can't make this sound natural. I'm drifting into my narrator voice.
Hey, look, a lot of people really like that narrator voice. By a lot of people, I mean me. So
that's all that matters, really.
It's going to be the three of us listening back to ourselves on this podcast anyway, so I don't think anybody else is going to tune in.
Who cares about the rest of you people? All right. Well, let's jump in, I guess. Let's talk a little bit about why we wanted to start this podcast and what we're hoping to do with it. So my idea when I reached out to you guys was that there was such a lack of a good international socialist podcast. At least I'm not aware of any, or haven't seen any big ones at least. And as, three of the larger socialist channels on YouTube, I figured we might be able to segue to something longer form and more casual like a podcast and port some of our audience over, which I think would do a lot to make this kind of content more accessible to people, who are traveling to work or whatever, or for whatever reason don't feel like watching YouTube videos. But that was my thinking. What do you guys think?
I think for me, mostly, it might sound a bit selfish, actually, but the reason I remember when you DM'd both Yugopnik and I, the first thought I had was, holy shit, this is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Because I kind of need that in my life at this point. I work very long hours, so as a result, I don't get to have as much of a social interaction with those online that I share opinions with and whatnot, as those that I have in real life. So, I'm trying to kind of branch out more, and also I would like to have something along the lines of what JT said. Another podcast that people can tune in when they're bored. They don't have to watch rigid videos with a lot of stats thrown at them, and as beautiful as the visuals may be or how well edited it may be, not everybody works well with videos and not everybody has the time for it. But that's kind of what I would like, what I want to get out of it. But also mostly because I want to hear your beautiful voices.
Damn, he will never stop with the goddamn compliments. I swear to God, I'm going to punch you through the motherfucking screen, my friend. Nah, jokes aside, I'm kind of a similar thing, semi-showmanish type of perspective. The moment that JT, contacted us and was like, okay, your Iraqi Arab ass, your Slavic alcoholic ass, and my intellectual American spoiled ass, if we come together, we can actually create something that does not speak only from the perspective of one part of the world, but actually from three corners which in their own respective ways have been impacted greatly, both by the system but also different kind of fucked up offspring of the system. So just having this opportunity to be able to sit together. Again, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but three people from three different corners, and for us to be able to actually overview things that are happening in our own parts of the world and in the world in general, and for us to be able to look at the program, which is pretty much international imperialism and capitalism, and then being able to, take our own little jabs and stabs at it from multiple perspectives can help and create, a bigger gaping hole in the system itself than if we were to do it by ourselves, or if we were just to do it with people from only our local communities. And that's kind of the beauty of the internet, because it allows us, without having to travel for fucking 12 hours or back in the day for 12 years, to be able to sit down and actually create something like this, which can allow people to hear many different voices from many different perspectives, and most importantly, for many different experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a great
to
perspective.
add also.
Go.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
This will also be an issue, I think, in the future, because both JT and I are way too polite to interject over each other. Yugopnik is the only asshole here that talks over people.
Yeah, because I'm the only one that has something to say, motherfucker. Okay, I'm kidding. I did not mean that. I don't know why I fucking said that. I'm obviously the dumbest guy here. I told him immediately. I know why I was invited here. I'm supposed to be the little clown that sometimes comes on the podcast fucking half pissed, which I'm not right now, which is probably going to be the only bloody episode when I'm not absolutely drunk, because I had to read in this one, and I can't read when the screen is fucking moving 50 miles per hour all over the goddamn room. But yes, I'll let the two actual intellectuals speak. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you can eat all of my ass. You are not only intellectual, you're an intellectual amongst intellectuals. I would say. I love your videos and I love the content that you put. So don't self-deprecate unless it's for the joke. There in that way we can all fucking self-deprecate. I hate everything about the shit that I do sometimes.
Yeah. Same.
Not from a video making perspective. I love making the videos, but sometimes I make it. I'm like, what is this shit? What is yeah. Anyways, my point being was. I think an interesting point to add is that we all represent three different forms of capitalism. JT specifically being within the imperial core proper, and specifically the United States, and his perspective, both culturally, socially, economically, politically, from his own quote-unquote lived experience, his own situation. That could be complemented, I think, by my opposite end, which is very imperial periphery perspective, at the other end of imperialism, experiencing a underdeveloped kind of forced upon capitalist, neoliberal market reform and all that kind of nonsense. And Yugopnik is a nice middle in between because he represents not a part of the imperial core, not exactly part of the imperial periphery, but this position where it used to be a socialist country, with all the beauties that socialism brought with it, that then was very rapidly liberalized and torn apart to make this capitalist Frankenstein that currently exists within the Balkans, kind of with one hand in the imperial periphery and one hand within the imperial core, kind of reaching out to Brussels and Germany and whatnot. So I think that's why I really like the perspective, and how whatever story might come up internationally or locally, all of us can have either differing perspectives, or very interestingly, if we have similar perspectives despite our different backgrounds. That's why I like the international nature of it all, and that's why I was so excited for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's super important because here in the U.S., I mean, you open up Spotify or whatever app you like to use, and the podcast landscape is just intensely, white American male centric, and there are so few perspectives from outside our little bubble that I think it's super critical to expand the listeners' horizons beyond the borders of the U.S. And that's a problem we have here in the U.S. in general. It's like people in Texas know more about politics in like Oregon than people in Oregon know about politics of Canada, and which are much closer together. So that's something that I hope we can help to rectify. I mean, just by having you guys here on the show, we'll be able to get such a valuable difference in opinions and perspectives. I think it's going to be really cool. But with all that said, I think let's go ahead and start by talking about our own radicalization processes. I mean, people know mine pretty well. It's the same as just about every young American. It's like, there's Bernie, and we learned that's not actual socialism, and so on. But what about you guys? Obviously, Bernie is a very American, quote-unquote, socialist. So what was it that really brought you guys to your opinions that you hold today?
Yugopnik, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Mamacita. Okay, so mine is kind of a cliche for the part of the world that I live in, at least for people that move towards a socialist mindset. After 89 and during the 90s and the awful wars which took place here, and afterwards the NATO bombings, etc., a lot of people wanted to find hope in the now changed and new type of economic setup that we had being brought to us by the international neoliberal establishment. And a lot of people, not necessarily because they truly believed in it, but because they needed to believe that good times are coming, sort of embraced capitalism as this new thing that they haven't seen since, World War II, because, we, after defeating the Nazis, this part of the world became, its own version of socialism. And the 90s pass, the system falls. You have all these smaller federative republics now becoming individual countries, and this new system being introduced. And as I said previously, a lot of people wanted to kind of find hope in it, and me, as pretty much a kid during that time, wanted to find hope in it as well. And I was inspired a lot by US film, US culture, Western culture in general, which was presenting life over there as this semi-utopian place where everybody, as long as they pull themselves up by their ball sacks, by their bootstraps, can actually make something out of themselves. And I genuinely believe that until I began my first year of university, where I had both the opportunity to interact with some absolutely brilliant professors and other students, which taught me a lot about this, the differing ways of seeing what we could do as a species as compared to, just competing over building a bigger mall as we do now, combined with being able to go for 4 months to the utopian US of A, as I said in my intro, to, make some extra money so I can pay for my scholarship and my tuition fees, etc., etc. And for 4 months, I worked 2 jobs for around 12 hours a day for 7 days a week, with only, for the 4 months, with 4 days off, which really, really, really allowed me to see the dirt under the fingernails of what was to me up until that point sold as this incredibly well-developed and established society. So for those 4 months, when I got to see how working class people in the richest country in the world live, how they're treated by their employers in a place which is supposed to be full of individual rights and rights of employees and employers, etc., that I wasn't getting surprised by not seeing in my part of the world. And that whole package and those 4 months of experiences, together with what I previously mentioned, the newly opened door into people actually telling me what socialism is, what anarchism is, what Leninism is, etc. That little combination created pretty much me. I remember the first time I Googled the Communist Manifesto. It was after a 13-hour work day. I got home. My roommate worked for probably longer hours that day, so he only had 2 cold beers ready for me, and he went to bed. And I was like, what the hell am I gonna do, because I wasn't that sleepy. And the next day was actually I didn't have the first shift, so I sat down and I Googled the manifesto, and there were some small summaries that popped up, and reading that with a freshly pissed off and at this point class consciousness infused mind, something just clicked in me. And after that I dove deeper and deeper and became the dude you see before you, or in this case here before you. Jesus, I've made that sound kind of pathetic there towards the end, but whatever.
Oh, not at all. I think it's better to just kind of not come off genuine, implying that you're being fake, but I mean, just show that how you felt about it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think, not necessarily saying there's sadness connected to it, but there's a melancholy that comes attached with capitalist exploitation that has to come through when you talk about it. And I think that is more relatable to people. But I wanted to ask you, actually, Yugopnik, because you grew up in the Balkans at the time, and I think we're all roughly around the same age. Do you remember the wars, or did they just end when consciousness kicked in?
My parents did an amazing job helping me not really experience them with a great intensity. They would lie, it's they're dropping candy, or they're the planes are just more people coming to our country, that's why they're flying over you, etc. And when we would hear news of this or that cousin, because I'm kind of from a semi-international family, and that's why I believe I'm also not very nationalistic, because I understand kind of the perspectives of the different nations in Yugoslavia while the war was going on, and that's why I don't blame one particular group. I think it's very reductionist. But yes, but what I do remember is kind of the sirens and running to the basement like 5 times a day, or sometimes just once and then staying there for like a day or two. But thank God, if such a thing exists, that I do not have any real trauma, nor would I ever claim that I do. But I know, unfortunately, literally, I don't want to say hundreds, but tens of people that are still not really okay because of what they experience. And I can only imagine the stories you can tell me coming from motherfucking Iraq, my man. Jesus fucking Christ. Or JT, going to American schools. That must be a very PTSD-inducing experience
That makes
as well.
Somehow
makes
that
Iraq-
doesn't seem quite as bad as your guys experienced.
I'm sure Texan schools make Iraq look like a playground. Jesus Christ! Yeah, you need to have the bulletproof backpacks.
8 a.m. We got shooting training. I tell you what.
Oh jeez, that's so not funny to joke about, but at the same time, I can't help but laugh. Fuck, I'm so sorry.
Do not keep
No,
that
it's
bloody
true.
joke in. I am not joining for a second episode. That was a great fucking joke I made right there. And keep this, me telling you to put the thing that, I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Keep it human. I love it. But yeah, that's very interesting to know. You had way nicer parents than I did. I guess it's my turn to give my story. All right, so being born in this in the glorious country that is Iraq, I very quickly, because I was born during the sanctions period of Iraq. For those who are unaware, from 1991 up until 2003, Iraq was heavily sanctioned. Not only heavily sanctioned, it was arguably the most highly sanctioned country in the world. We're talking about levels of economic sanctioning greater than even the DPRK in Cuba. It was very severe, very harsh sanctions. I was born during that period, and growing up in that, you kind of almost the environment teaches you to be anti-imperialist in a general sense and anti-American in a specific sense. Of that, if my point gets across, and I grew up with that up until my early childhood, 4, 5, 6 years of age, and then as I grew up further and I began to understand more, because I don't know, in the U.S. From what I read, from what I've read and what I remember, the way the war was portrayed as, my freedoms, we need to, bring democracy to Iraq, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And kind of the, let's say, dissenting opinion or the controversial opinion was to say, we're in Iraq for oil, or we're in Iraq for this or that, like some sort of material gain. But in Iraq, there was no illusion of why the United States was there. Everybody you would speak to, even the most anti-government people, within Iraq would tell you the same thing. It's that the Americans are invading Iraq not because they want to give us freedom or democracy or whatever else. They're coming because we have incredibly important geopolitical position. We are an enemy of Israel that stands as an actual threat to that illegal settler colonial military occupation. We exist also as the only nation at the time of the entire Arab world that could develop itself, had we the capacity without sanctions, develop ourselves into a formidable economic, social, cultural, and military power. On top of our massive resources of natural gas and oil and even refinable earth metals and whatnot, and amongst other things, uranium and so on. So when you talk to people, this is the perspective they give you. They came here for our gold, they came here for our uranium, they came here for our oil. And they came here because they don't like the fact that we can stand up to ourselves and have our own country and run it by our own dictates, can we say. So that is kind of the environment I grew up in. And then seeing the very physical manifestation of imperialism, being woken up at 4 a.m, to Americans dropping bombs on you and having to go into your basement, your makeshift basement as a bomb shelter. These things kind of really reinforce the fact that the world as it exists, I think a sentence to sum it up is this: you cannot have a liberal outlook when you see the very physical manifestation of imperialism. You cannot ever take the human rights, democracy, fair trial, all that nonsense. You can't take that seriously when you see the countries that supposedly believe in all that dropping bombs on innocent civilians for ends that are neither clear to them for the most part nor us. So that was kind of my radicalization. But more concretely, I think amongst us three, I may have been, or I think I've been a Marxist for the longest period, but that's not a credit to me. I've met people who have been Marxists for a single year or two who are way more well-read than I am. But I think, just to link that, because it was in my early teenage years that I started reading, and when reading about general modern history, and then reading about the Soviet Union, and then reading about their ideology, and then from then on I started reading about, okay, so what is socialism, what is self-sufficiency, what is anti-imperialism, and kind of merging all those together into a semi-coherent ideological outlook that was then only informed by a reading of Marx, of Engels, of Lenin, of Mao, and of many other authors that have contributed to this beautiful tradition. So yeah, I guess that's my general trend, my general story of radicalization. Very long-winded and not very interesting, I don't think, but I guess it parallels that of many other people who are in similar situations as I am.
Not interesting, dude.
No, I think those.
Yep, go on, JT.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Okay, well, I was just going to say, we're going to say the same thing. I think that's a super interesting history you've got there. I mean, especially coming from someone in the United States, we don't have that kind of perspective. You know, as a citizen of the nation that is, you know, doing the imperialism, that's doing the bombing, we are sheltered from that. We have no concept of what it's like to be on the receiving end of someone trying to force their own, you know, quote unquote way of life on your nation, you know, whatever that way of life may be, whether it's, you know, whether they actually believe it as some kind of grand program for positive change or whether it's strictly an imperial project. But yeah, I mean, just being able to hear your perspective on that, I think is super critical for Americans in particular.
Yes, and it was.
I appreciate that.
And it was.
Sorry, go on.
And it was incredibly beautifully put as well. I mean, just imagining the scene of you looking through a window as bombs are falling on your beautiful city. I can literally just hear the Internationale slowly playing in your fucking brain as you're getting angrier and angrier. No, I can really relate, especially with the sanctions and so on. Thank God I don't remember the bombings much. And what I found with not to hijack the story, but what I found interesting, for example, in the contrast between the two of ours, is that you experience these horrors much more directly, and that immediately, you know, made something click in your mind. And as you said, many others from your country of birth. But with me, because I did not experience it as intensely, and because the propaganda was so strong that even after seeing the Yugoslav Republic completely falling apart and these absolutely stupid banana republics being born out of it, and after even seeing the poverty that was infused and that came with it and everything, I still kind of, I don't know, I hoped that, we here are fucked up because we're barbaric and stupid and backwards and uncivilized, and I was still kind of hoping that's because it's messed up here because of us. But the moment I stepped on U.S. soil and spent 4 months there, I was like, oh my God, it's not us, it's not even them, it's not about the population of the U.S. It's about this system which takes lovely, beautiful human beings and turns it into paste, which lubes it up so that it can keep fucking running. And it's, yeah.
I think that's a very, very good point, because I think with my experience and Yugopnik's experience, there's that parallel that I think Americans might not have. A lot of the time when you talk to, for example, when I talk to other people, other Iraqi people, they'll say, the reason Iraq is bad isn't because of capitalism, if we're even having this conversation. They'll say the reason Iraq is bad is because of Iraqis. Iraqis are lazy. Iraqis are this and that and that and that, right? And I think
exactly.
Yugopnik's point kind of parallels that. But in the United States, I think maybe, JT, you could inform us what is the general perspective. Do people say, capitalism doesn't work, the people, or capitalism works, it's just the people are lazy? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think typically what happens is there's a very Eurocentric, if I'm going to be polite, but frankly, white supremacist ideology here. Will typically, the typical American will look abroad and say, well, yeah, these people are just backwards. I mean, they can't do it themselves. That we're over there to help them become more like us, to find a way to implement capitalism that will work with them. And it's not even that will jive with their culture, but it's more of a, hey, we need to force these people into a stricter, different way of thinking that will allow them to understand that capitalism is better, that this is the way, it's the natural way, and that they are just too far behind, they're barbaric or whatever. And that can be applied to basically any country around the world. And you see it typically applied to countries where, the skin color is different or the language is different. You see it especially like right next door for me, it's applied to Mexico and Latin America. These people are just backwards savages who need to be civilized, and therefore we need to go in and act as that civilizing force because they won't be able to do it themselves. And I think to an extent that's just ingrained in the American psyche. It's kind of what we're taught. The United States military and United States aid groups are a force for good and for civilization. We're the torchbearers of this bright new way forward. And it's an attempt by those in power here to program the American people to believe that they are living in the greatest place on earth. We're living in the end of history, that capitalism is the pinnacle and nothing will ever surpass it. And I think, that's really what we want to do with this show. I said to program the people, and what we want to do is help to deprogram those people, to help people understand that, maybe these things that you're told aren't exactly correct, or they're being told to you from a perspective that benefits a certain group of people. So that's really what I want to do with this show. Sorry to go off on a tangent there, but yeah, I think that perspective of the U.S. as a civilizing force, a force for good, the last bastion of faith in capitalism, is something that really needs to be pushed back on.
Exactly right. Beautifully said. I think that stupid joke popped into my head, but when you're talking about the comparison between Texas and Mexico, we want to deprogram people from thinking that the second you step over the American border into Mexico, a yellow tint doesn't just magically show up over everything.
And everything's dustier.
So I think
it's always dusty.
Yeah, of course. Oh man. What I was going to say earlier as well is that, so JT, what needs to happen as well is that, of course, the deprogramming that would take place isn't only for the audience, it's for us as well, because both you and I and Yugopnik are programmed into different sorts of understandings of the world, schemas, if you want to call them that. And even though we've made our way kind of out of some of them, doesn't mean if we've made our way out of all of them. All of us have our own biases, and we can maybe even say reactionary points that would need work on. All of us are always in perpetual, maybe it sounds LARPy to even say, but in perpetual revolution within ourselves as well. But what this means concretely is that Yugopnik has experienced civil war. I've experienced a form of civil war. So now what's left is for you to experience an American civil war, and then we can be on equal footing.
Looking forward to it.
No. I hope for nothing but peace for the American people, the American leadership and government. Yeah, behead all those cunts. But
yeah, well, if there is a civil war here, Texas is going to be on the front lines. They've been eager for a long time. So yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. I'll take pictures.
The Texas Republic, yeah. Wasn't that a thing for a while?
Hey, man, the South will rise again, but this time it will be a Soviet Republic. Just like that stupid fucking tweet. That person was like, "Oh, we have Texans spying on each other. What is this? A Soviet Republic? I wish." Oh man.
Yeah. That's that whole genre of tweets like, sees something happening in America Americanly. What is this, Asia? It's like, come on. No.
And it's always...
It's very frustrating.
Exactly, and it's always all these self-important liberals that believe that, they are absolutely respectful towards other ethnicities and other cultures. But then they're the first ones that are like, for example, something happens, that's like negative in the States, and then they bring up these statistical boards and they're like, but the US is number 6 behind like Uruguay, those fucking Browns. Like, what the fuck? Like, okay, man, you don't have to be number 1 in everything. It's fine.
Yeah.
Champagne liberals, they're the ones who will kind of, they'll what's it called? They'll let, what's it called? They'll cosplay and being, all accepting and all loving, but they wouldn't allow a ethnic person to move into their gated communities.
Oh, no way. And they also want to eradicate all the homeless. It's definitely, it's its own form of LARPing.
Yeah, for sure. My God, I don't understand that about the U.S., though. I've had several people that I know in real life that have visited the United States, and the very first thing, keep in mind, both Yugopnik and I, we're from third world countries, technically. I mean, maybe that's offensive to Yugopnik's homeland, but...
Fuck no. It is.
I've seen some roads in where you come from, Habibi. It's more like a fourth world country.
I've seen some bars from where you come from, Habibi. Oh, wait, you don't have bars. Motherfucker.
That's because we have glorious Sharia.
I shall convert you by the end of this podcast. You shall accept glorious Orthodox Christianity. I'm kidding. Of course not.
I tell you what, we got roads and we got bars. We're the best damn place in the world.
Get me some Catholicism, yeah. Or what is Texas? Protestant or Catholic? I don't know.
No,
Protestant.
They're Protestants. Nah. They're the Protestants. No, they hate the Catholics.
So the ones that can't decide.
Those liberal Yankees. Yeah. The liberal Yankees up north are Catholics. They don't like them. This is all my very limited understanding of the United States. But what the fuck was I talking about even?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. You called Slavic countries fourth world. Yeah, but there you go. No, I love it. Keep going, yeah.
That's all jokes. But no, what I was saying... fuck me, Jesus Christ.
I want to.
I saw a patient with pneumonia today. Yes, please. I saw a patient with pneumonia today. It would be way too quick for pneumonia has an incubation period. I don't have pneumonia, but all of a sudden I started coughing, and my dumbass was like, But yeah, no.
Have a drink for your throat. Have a vodka. Me. Oh wait, you cannot, of course.
Yeah, that is true. All I can have is the cool breeze of paradise afterwards.
By the way, explain that because probably a lot of listeners don't even know that Muslims cannot drink alcohol.
Yes,
there you go. Now you learned something new. Now continue. Yes.
Yeah. We'll probably have an episode about all that eventually, and like how the intersections of religion and socialism.
Yeah.
Now, there'll be a lot of fun for the future. But right now, we're shitposting time, and during shitposting time, I was saying something about all of us being fucking third world countries. Yeah. Fuck. You know what? I lost my point. Whatever.
Well, it was a good try.
But yeah, so that's just generally... Oh, no, it just came back to me, yes. I got my point. It was, I know several people who I know directly who have went to the U.S., and being from third world countries, they go, and the very first thing they always tell me is, Jesus Christ, there's so many homeless people. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Yugopnik, is this also very common where you come from, where you see... You went to the U.S. Is it the same where you see these hordes of, people in between buildings and stuff?
It is not the same at all. Like, not even close. You can rarely see homeless people here because, I don't know, some guys gave free apartments to pretty much fucking everyone, even though, Westerners still screenshot them. They're like, Eastern Europe, look at ugly building. And I'm like, Western Europe, look at homeless man on street.
At least I own it.
Man. Especially in Miami, in New York I saw a lot, but in Miami that was insane, dude. It's literally just hordes of people like on parking lots, next to parking lots, with tents up and everything. It was, thank God it was, hot. But yes, that is very weird to see. Very weird to see.
All this in the richest country on earth, not just richest country on earth, richest society in humanity's history so far. Right.
Yeah.
And the most outrageous part of it is like, they're homeless because they can't make money because they don't got jobs. Yeah. All right. Whatever. Fuck all that job market nonsense. The United States, even as a country, even as developed as it is, has so much work that needs to be done. Just the infrastructure within the United States alone will require many decades of work of the scale of like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of workers to manage to bring up to an acceptable level. And here you have all these people who are mostly, by vast majority, able-bodied working age men by majority, right? all people who could and are willing to contribute and directly aid their country, and of course receive a salary and live their lives. But no, there needs to be a reserve army of labor. There needs to be perpetual unemployment and the fear of, you know what, this job fucking sucks. It pays like shit, but I can't go anywhere else because I'm gonna be like Bob on the fucking street.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a huge problem here. I mean, especially in places with, you know, temperate climates like Florida, like Portland is a big one, or Seattle. But yeah, I've been meaning to make a video about that for a while, where we have all this work, like you were saying, all these jobs that need to be done, this infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt, and yet those jobs just aren't available. Like there's so much work to be done. Why are there no jobs? The only thing that's available is gig work, or, you know, working at a big box store like Walmart or Amazon, something like that.
At 39-hour contracts, mind you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, these places will keep you part-time, so they don't have to give you benefits or, you know, paid sick days, or, I mean, nowhere offers any kind of parental leave. It's, you know, by all reasonable standards, despite its vast wealth and status as the richest nation in the history of the world, I mean, the U.S. may as well be a third world country. It treats its people far worse than a lot of countries with vastly lower GDP, which is it's frustrating to see, but it's also illuminating when you start looking at the reasons.
For sure. I remember, this is kind of a tangent, I guess, but I was at a friend's house the other day, and for some for some reason he had a stream of Fox News that he could get, that he could manage to get like a signal to, and he was like, fuck it, let's put it on. So we put it on, and my god, like, it's just American television. I would see it in movies, in American movies and stuff, but I thought all that was exaggerating. How like every second commercial is like, oh, ask your doctor if you can be prescribed blank or some shit. But yeah, or all these, like, you know, like all of a sudden the really loud fucking dun 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 music, and then it just has some weird figure, and it's like, oh, like crunch time with Jim Bobson or some bullshit, like some stupid headline, right? And it will be a guy, and he's like, oh, Biden's new tax plan will be hitting the all this bullshit. And I said, yeah, I can't. You know, the reason I have a hard time sometimes relating to Americans is because, as a non-American, just seeing American society and just facts about American life would be enough to radicalize me. But being within the United States, being surrounded every day by no healthcare, no ability to get sick leave or parental leave, no ability for guaranteed employment, right? The very fact of how, you know, like job efficiency and productivity has skyrocketed within the United States and all over the world, but mostly within the United States. But wages have stayed stagnant since the 70s. Basic facts like this, how all infrastructure within the US is like D grade or below, and how you guys have fucking concrete panel roads like it's 1942, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's not something I never even think about. Like, you mentioned that the other day, I'm like, you know what? I guess you're right. All our roads are concrete.
So yeah. Like, oh my god. So that's why I sometimes, and that's also why I really like the idea of the podcast, and I really love the name, The Deprogram, because I think all of us are somewhat, at least slightly, kind of unplugged from this entire perspective, where you think, oh, this stuff is just normal, and the point of this podcast is for people to listen, and then all of a sudden realize, just like that, like, hey, maybe not us as the richest country on earth not having parental leave. Meanwhile, Cuba, which is an embargoed like third world country, or fucking not even Cuba, Tanzania, and like other poor third world countries, the sort of countries that people, when they want to, you know, give an example of somewhere poor, right, they'll name those countries. Those places have, you know, multi-month, 2-month, 4-month, 6-month, years long parental leave, fully paid or at 80% rate, with a guaranteed job when you return after you're done with it. Even like I'm at a loss for words just trying to fucking explain it.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it's so true, and it's such a challenge here to get people to understand just how far behind the United States is. You know, we sure the people here might make more money, but the work-life balance and the overall health of the society is just so far below where it should be. You know, we have such enormous health problems. We have such enormous homelessness problems. People go bankrupt just taking an ambulance ride to the hospital. It's like these are things that we need to make my fellow Americans aware of, and things that I only became aware of, you know, fairly recently. So there's such a huge gap in knowledge, and that's something that I think needs to come before anything else. Like, before we can address these problems, Americans just need to know, like, look, this is not the greatest place on earth. I mean, far from it.
Even the biggest like promise that you guys, you know, are given is, you know, you get to own a lot of cool shit, you know, property.
Yeah.
You don't. Nobody owns anything. The bank owns everything, and you're paying rent to the bank instead of to the landlord. If you're lucky, you probably live under a landlord. But if you're lucky and you actually can get a mortgage, you can actually buy a house or a car or a second car, or build that pretty pool, or even put out that lawn in front of your house on a loan. Haha, my English levels here. Or at this point, you want to buy a new iPhone, you want to buy a laptop. Even you got to get coupons or get loans to even buy some food, to go on vacation. Everything that you've been promised for as kind of rewards that you can get for participating in the system actively, you're no longer even getting. Okay, maybe up until the 40s, 50s, even 60s, you know, white privileged males usually ended up getting some of this stuff if they, you know, really put in a lot of work, if they were lucky enough, etc., etc. But, and if one could say, okay, this was one of the, you know, the positives, this was the American dream, blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, you do not even have that. I mean, that's extremely weird. And even in like countries as dirt poor as where I'm from, a lot of people just save money and then they buy a thing. Or when they're buying an apartment, they save up even up to 40-50% of it. They almost nobody buys brand new cars on loans. No, you buy a 2-3 year older car and you fucking drive it. I go to the US, there's fucking 3 cars parked in front of every house, and it's 2 stories with 3 garages. Hey, Mr. Smith. Oh, hey, Yugopnik. Very nice house. What do you do? Oh, I'm an engineer. How much do you make? $110,000 a year. How much is this house? $7 million. What the fuck? And it's your house? Yeah, it's my house. And do you pay mortgage? Yes, I pay mortgage. No, it's not your house. Shut the fuck up. No, it is your house. You know, you get what I'm saying. But my point being,
it's everything's on
nobody
credit.
can afford anything. Literally, the one thing you're promised is you get cool shit. But now you can't even get cool shit. You cannot afford to get cool shit.
Exactly right. The one thing that is promised, which is this very unsustainable and frankly unhealthy promise of just to consume, as the meme goes. Even that promise, it's entirely raised on credit. The very idea that even if you try to buy something, it will never be yours, or you will pay indefinite amounts, way higher than the even worth of the thing is. People, the big meme of, oh, you can make so much money in the US. Yeah, but even if you have like $3 million in the bank, one trip to one cancer diagnosis can bankrupt you. That's not what a healthy society is. But anyway, sorry, go on, JT.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, the promise that we're given now, the only thing that is left to be promised is, you know, quote unquote freedom. You have the freedom to work where you want. You have the freedom to do what you want, to buy what you want. But the thing that people don't realize is that's such a cop-out, because if you're working, you know, 12, 13 hours a day, if you're making poverty wages, if you can't afford to go to the hospital, if you can't afford rent or whatever utility bills, that to me does not indicate freedom, right? I mean, how free are you if you are required to spend all of your time working and just being a cog in this machine? And that's I think that's the fatal flaw of the freedom argument. It's like, how free are you if you're just a slave to your circumstances?
Yeah, I think that's the end all and be all of capitalism, really. At the end, the only thing it can truly promise is platitudes. It can never be anything concrete. Socialism, on the other hand, we can promise concrete things because we have an actual, a plan of action, for lack of better terms. There's ways that things can be done. There's something that we actually want to put in place. We want to put your direct workplace within your hands and your fellow workers, so that you can choose what you want to produce and how it should be organized and all that. All that capitalism offers, on the other hand, is these vague, liberal, kind of lukewarm promises, as worthy as the politicians promise, where you will have something like, ooh, freedom, but you can't fucking move across country or do what you love because it's either way too expensive, or it will never make you money, or there just simply isn't room for it, for example, right? Oh, you get to own as much as you like, yeah, but that entirely hinges on your earning capacity, and if you're not born into inherited wealth, there's slim to none your chances of attaining that kind of wealth, right? But oh no, you can be an entrepreneur and you can have an idea, yeah, until it's bought out by bigger companies, or you're entirely restricted to be cut off from the market, or even if you succeed, what did you give up in your life to achieve this level of success, right? And how are you bringing it about? By exploiting other people. It's not even a moral argument at this point, but at the end of the day, we shouldn't tear the soul out of socialism, and we shouldn't be, cold pragmatists with the way we approach it. TLDR, capitalism is an inhuman and unjust system. That's basically what I want to say.
Well said.
That's why it's very important to, like, from the lens of an American, it's very important to, for example, hear these sorts of foreign perspectives, especially ironically from even poorer countries. But it's also very important for people from the imperial periphery, as Hakeem beautifully puts it, to understand that it's not all roses and butterflies, one ocean over. Nor is it for any listeners that might not have had the experience of going to EU countries. I've been to quite a few. I have many, many friends from all of them, and obviously, me being a beautifully informed individual, I can tell you that it's also, not all it's prepped up to be. Obviously, yes, in certain aspects it's better, and the life standards are higher. But even if you use these European examples as, the definitions of, somewhere on this globe people actually live really well, you could make an argument that they live relatively okay, but that would ignore the hundreds, if not thousands, of inherent systemic problems that eat away usually at the most disenfranchised people in those specific countries, and not only them. And the fucked up thing with something, something systemic being a parasite on the poorest of the working class, and even those who are not working, wherever it is in the world, people tend to feel safe, and they tend to feel like, this is not going to come for me. You see that homeless guy on the street. You're never going to become the homeless guy. Well, that homeless guy also thought the same thing. You see your colleague getting fired because they're, for example, automating his position. You say, no, but I've been here for 5 years longer than him. That's never going to happen to me. Then you end up getting fired. You can apply this to pretty much absolutely any aspect of life, as long as you are not an owner. When you are an owner, what us LARPers, tend to call the bourgeoisie, then you have a lot more control over what actually can happen to you and not happen to you, because you are indirectly the dictator of whatever thing you are owning in whatever enterprise you are leading. But for the rest of us, we always have to keep in mind that what's fucking all those people that are much poorer than me can one day fuck with us as well. Basically, very convoluted way of saying solidarity is very fucking important. Very fucking important.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's why the United States has, and those in power within not only the US but most of the world, but this is more a specifically American perspective, that the average American person isn't a member of the working class, but a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, as they say. Yeah. But I would like to actually just add a point that Yugopnik very beautifully said of how people live, and then they could, for example, point to, Sweden or the UK or France or what have you, and be like, well, people there, capitalism, they live well. But that doesn't, of course, lead into the underlying issue, and that's, again, something I would like to connect the quote-unquote deprogramming to, this perspective that a lot of people who are maybe baby leftists or kind of leaning towards that angle Whether you want to point at Sweden or Norway or Germany or wherever else, you need to remember that pointing at a population of people who consume at levels that are unsustainable for the planet, all the while their lifestyle is entirely funded off the backs of the super exploitation of the imperial periphery, is not something that we should ever aspire to. We shouldn't try to make our countries basically, it's pretty decent over here. I can have my car and I can have my house and I can have my healthcare. But the only reason I can have that is because, there's a Congolese tea farmer or a Bolivian mine worker or a Bangladeshi textile worker that's being paid cents on the dollar to live in absolute squalor with no housing or guaranteed housing, guaranteed employment, no healthcare, no access to education, no opportunities. But hey, at least, I got mine. So that's why we would also need to, we don't only want to pull the face off of capitalism, or the heart out, more likely, but we also want to pull off the smiley face that they put up on top of it when they want to present themselves as the social democrats. But that's just a point, a side note, maybe for a future episode.
Yeah, I think that's also really important. It's something that a lot of people don't really tend to think about. We've got a lot of people here in the United States especially who are like, oh, we just need to be more like the Nordic countries. They have it right. The taxes are right, and you've got healthcare, and all this stuff is more humane. You're like, well, yeah, it's more humane for the people who live there. But then you see videos of an African cocoa farmer who is given a taste of chocolate for the first time. He's never tasted chocolate until some guy with a video camera for some feel-good news program goes there and says, hey, do you know what this cocoa is used for? He's like, no, I know it's used to make nice things for other countries, but I don't know what it is. And he's like, oh, here, it's chocolate, try it. And he gets his first taste of the thing that he is contributing directly to. All these years of his life, he's been working, slaving away, and doing this stuff for nothing. And to produce something that he will never consume himself unless by the grace of some, Western savior come to make a feel-good program about him. So that's something that needs to be, the people have the wool pulled over their eyes of just how exploitative even the most humane-seeming social democracies are.
Most kind and pleasant and fluffy capitalism. It's absolutely... honestly, it would be funny if it weren't so sad.
Yeah.
To see that even the most radical traditions in some of the Western countries right now, the furthest they could possibly go is, hey, let's just get to that level of the blanket alienation and exploitation of other places. But very neatly put, beautiful.
Yeah, the thing with class consciousness, even in general, is it can form inside of your own state, your own country, your own ethnic, religious, cultural group, but it does take an extra few steps for it to form towards the international proletariat. It's obviously, and I'm not judging anyone, much easier to understand and co-identify with Jim over there who you work in the factory with, or even someone halfway across your own country. But other than, just liberal moralism, I'm talking about real class consciousness. Other than that, it might be a bit more difficult to understand that quite a lot of your lifestyle is worked for and created by the even more radical exploitation of somebody half the world over who very often doesn't even look like you. But I'm not making this point or argument like this degrowth stuff and blah blah. Oh, we should all just be fucking vegan and stop using plastic straws. No, I'm making this argument just to say that yes, your local economies and governments are fucked up, but they're fucked up and they manage to stay in power because they are deeply connected to other economies and governments which are also extremely fucked up. which allows them to stay in power, and therefore one could very easily still make the argument that having class consciousness with the international proletariat, with people all over the world, working people all over the world, is going to also help you in the long run. So yes, help your neighbor, look at your neighbor, but also look at the world in a more global perspective, because we are now connected more than ever, and something that does happen over in country number 7 does impact everything over in country number 1. So cut it with the fucking selfishness, okay? And the exceptionalism.
Big brain Yugopnik sneaking in Wallersteinian concepts of world systems theory into daily conversation. Big brain. No, but the second you're talking about how the interconnected economies, and I just started thinking about that. I was like, is this where he's gonna go? Oh fuck.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful not to sound like a fucking third worldist or something, like, oh fuck the fucking American worker, yeah, go fuck yourself, because there's a fucking African that's working so that he can make the machine that you cut your fucking metal with. I disagree with that shit completely. But
no, for sure. We are not. Yeah, I think all of us agree. At the end of the day, we're all Marxists and we're pragmatic, and we have a materialist analysis towards the world around us. To be kind of myopic in that way and try to pretend as if there is no proletariat within the first world or whatnot, this is ridiculous. There is a nuance to this conversation that we can definitely delve into for a future episode, which can be a lot of fun. But yeah, the general gist of it is, no matter where you are, whoever's listening to this podcast, most likely you are a working class person who would identify with the vast majority of the rest of the working class of the world, if not directly through social or other perspectives, then definitely on class and economic lines.
Exactly. And even if you're not a member of the proletarian class, we welcome capitalist class traders. Come, donate to different movements, invest your money into things that are fighting directly against your own interests, because I don't know, you're a very good person, question mark. And yeah, you'll find a Patreon account down in the description.
That's the most important thing to donate to, right?
Out of everything, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up for today. I think we touched on a lot of things that are going to make for great episodes down the line. I'm super excited for all of those. Thank you all for listening. This has been a great time. I hope you stuck with us. We will be back. We're going to try to do this every week. No promises. Obviously, we've still got our training wheels on here. Had to do a scripted first bit, but we'll find our stride, and we're looking forward to making more content for you guys. This has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Yugopnik.
And we'll see you next time.